Well, it's that time of the week again where Xbox have decided to treat our wallets with a lovely new sale, and this week seems to be a heavy emphasis on the Tokyo Game Show, so you can expect a lot of games here from Sega, Bandai Namco and a few others. There are a ton of games that are also rarely ever on discount, so it's definitely worth checking out this video for this week. Before we do dive in, remember I do give away a free Xbox game here on these sale videos every single Wednesday. All you have to do is just comment below and you're automatically entered. Congratulations to last week's winner. I do have to agree with you. The Witcher 3 at that price point was insanely good and is easily one of my favourite games of the last generation. Just remember to hit me up on our awesome Xbox Nation Discord server and I will get that game right over to you. With that though, let's dive right into the games on sale that you definitely need to grab for this week. First up, and from the creators of Persona, came Metaphor Refantazio, and this was a really fresh RPG that reimagined classic turn-based combat through a fantasy lens. Instead of urban Japan, this adventure now unfolds in a sprawling medieval-inspired world that's full of kingdoms, myths, and political intrigue. It is quite stylish, it's very ambitious, and honestly, it's just brimming with Atlus's signature blend of rich storytelling and striking art design. You can of course expect a ton of layered combat that rewards your strategy, a sweeping cast of awesome characters, and just visuals that ooze so much personality. It's not even a year old yet, but this 45% discount this week drops it down to £33, which is actually the lowest price that we've seen so far for this absolute gem. Keeping in the realm of Atlus, Persona 5 Royal is now down on discount for this week to its lowest price ever, and you can grab it at 60% off. In this one though, you will take on the role of the leader of the Phantom Thieves, and you have to balance everyday school life with even more dungeon crawling. The main highlight for me though when I did try this one was the battle system, as it feels both sleek and also satisfying, as you kind of expect now with any Atlus title. The game is also easily 100 plus hours long, but every moment feels crafted to draw you right into it. Right now it's down to £20, and considering the amount of content and quality on display here, it's an absolute steal. Not every superhero game nails its launch. Marvel's Avengers does prove that, but Gotham Knights has grown into a better experience than many expected over time. In this one, you step into the boots of Batgirl, Robin, Nightwing, or even Red Hood, and you'll be patrolling Gotham in Batman's absence. Each hero also has their own distinct abilities, which does make combat pretty interesting and also provides a lot of variety within the co-op in the new world of Gotham City. The city itself is pretty sprawling, with crimes to stop and secrets to uncover, even though the storytelling isn't as tight as the Arkham series that we know and love. What really redeems it though is the sheer amount of content, with loads of gear progression and also the ability to tackle it with your friends, which is quite nice to see. At launch it was a pretty tough sell, but right now it's only £6.50 thanks to a whopping 90% discount. To me it's quite easy to recommend it, especially at that low price point. Long before Dragon's Dogma 2 actually rekindled the hype for this series, Arisen quietly built a really big cult following. This action RPG blends weighty tactical combat with an open world full of dangers, and it feels genuinely intimidating. The pawn system, which are AI companions you can customize and share online, remains one of its most unique mechanics, allowing endless combinations of different party dynamics. Climbing onto a griffin mid-battle as well, or facing off against towering cyclopses never stops feeling epic. Normally you'd expect a game this influential to hold its value, but it's just £3 right now after an 85% discount. There are very few action RPGs on the market that look to combine anime flair with kinetic combat. Scarlet Nexus was always a game that I was really hyped for at the start of the Xbox Series generation, and to be honest, it's still one of those games that sits fondly within my own gaming catalogue. This one though is kind of strange, as it is set in a futuristic city that's plagued by bizarre alien-like creatures known as the Others. You will then play as one of two protagonists wielding psychic powers, and each of them also have a different story path, which is a very unique aspect to these sort of experiences. Honestly though, the big highlight does lie within its combat system, as telekinetically hurling cars, signs and debris at your enemies whilst chaining melee attacks is so bloody awesome. Normally this one does go on sale a few times a year, but this week it's down to just £7.50, which is the best price we've ever seen. I like to sometimes highlight games that never get mentioned much at all here on the channel, and one very ambitious story-driven adventure that I did quite enjoy was Dreamfall Chapters. It's the continuation of the Longest Journey saga, and it weaves sci-fi and fantasy into a deeply character-focused narrative. It's very similar in a way to games like Life is Strange, so of course your choices do matter here, not just in dialogue, but also how the entire story branches and evolves over 5 episodes. The pacing is actually slower than the aforementioned game, as it really emphasises atmosphere, conversation, and also puzzle solving over its action. If you are a fan of narrative-heavy games like Life is Strange or even the Telltale's Walking Dead, then this one is an absolute gem. At just £2.39 is a fraction of the price of a cinema ticket for a story that lasts far longer and hits just as hard emotionally. Sometimes patience pays off, quite literally. Sniper Ghost Warrior 3 gives you sprawling maps where stealth, planning, and precision shooting take center stage. You can scout with your drones, set traps, or even take out enemies from extreme distances, and then watch as the world reacts to your very own choices. Don't get me wrong, this game isn't perfect. At launch it had some severe issues, but this Season Pass edition fixes much of that with added story missions, weapons, and also maps that flesh out the entire experience. It's a sandbox for sharpshooters who want a lot of freedom in how they approach different objectives, and it mixes open world exploration with tense and calculated takedowns. Usually, as it's a full bundle, this one would cost quite a bit of money, but right now it's just £3.19 after a staggering 90% off. From Software are best known for Dark Souls and also Elden Ring, but Armored Core 6 proves that they haven't lost their touch within the mecha combat space. This game isn't just about giant robots, it's about customization, experimentation, and also finding the perfect build to handle the game's relentless missions. Of course, every single encounter here, as you could probably see on screen now, is very fast, brutal, and spectacular, and actually forces you to balance your agility, firepower, and resource management in very curious ways. Boss fights in particular though are pretty jaw-dropping, combining the studio's trademark difficulty with their dazzling boss designs. I have to say though, From Software games never go on sale often, and if they do, it's not for much. So seeing a 40% discount for this game is quite decent, especially as this is the lowest price that it's ever been before. Ghostrunner is a stupidly exhilarating game, and it's honestly one that I absolutely fell in love with after trying it out only a year ago now. This one though drops you into a cyberpunk dystopia where every run is a test of your reflexes, and really it can get bloody difficult. You're armed with a katana and parkour abilities, and you'll be slicing through enemies while wall running, dashing, and grappling at breakneck pace. The catch though is that one hit and you're dead, forcing you to perfect your timing and your movements to progress through each chapter. Instead of frustration, the instant respawns though do make it insanely addictive and gives you that sort of just one more try mentality. If you do add in as well that incredible pulsating synthwave soundtrack, it's one hell of a good time. This one usually goes on sale though around £8, so seeing it down to £6.24 is a lovely discount. It's quite easy to say, but this next game got absolutely blasted last year, and from my own personal experience is a pretty average experience. However, if you're looking for an action-adventure title within the AA space that is cheap and does provide some fun gameplay at time to time, then you definitely need to try Unknown 9 Awakening. It essentially has you playing as Haruna, who's a woman with supernatural abilities, and it's all tied to an enigmatic hidden dimension called the Fold. The narrative in this game though actually dives into different secret societies and ancient conspiracies, whilst the gameplay does like to mix exploration, puzzles, and also combat. As mentioned though, the reviews for this one were pretty mixed across the board, but the intrigue of its premise does make it quite a fascinating pickup. With a 75% discount, it is a solid deal, especially if you're craving something different on your Xbox this week. I love unique indie games from smaller publishers, and one that I had the pleasure of playing earlier this year was The Precinct. This one puts you in the shoes of a rookie cop and blends open world action with procedural crime generation. Instead of scripted missions alone, the city itself does become your playground, with random calls pulling you into car chases, robberies, and tense standoffs. Unlike many open world games out there, the focus on this one is law enforcement rather than chaos, and that novelty really does make it stand out from the crowd. I was actually quite skeptical going into this one, especially due to the isometric nature, and although it didn't break too much new ground in terms of its storytelling, it's actually quite a fun little experience. Again, this one is a newer release still, so discounts are pretty rare, but right now it's 30% off, sitting at just £17.50. Few games out there look as unique as SCHiM. In this one, you'll be playing as a tiny shadow spirit, leaping from one shadow to another, navigating an environment that's otherwise out of reach. The mechanics here feel both simple and ingenious, with light and shade becoming your platforms, creating puzzles that are as much about observation as they are your reflexes. Of course, as you can see, it's got a really cool minimalist stylized look to it, and also gives it a sort of almost storybook charm, while the gameplay itself does scratch that puzzle platformer itch. There's a quiet beauty to its design though, making it less about stress and more about the flow. At £12.59 after a 40% discount, it's not the cheapest indie around, but its creativity is certainly worth that cost of investment. For all of you players who value originality over atmosphere, SCHiM delivers that in so many ways. Metro Exodus is survival horror and storytelling at its finest, and the fact that it's down to less than a cup of coffee for this week is quite mind-blowing, to be honest. This one is of course set in a post-apocalyptic Russia, and it takes the claustrophobic tension of the earlier Metro games and then expands it into a semi-open world. You'll be scavenging for supplies, crafting weapons, and navigating hostile environments, whilst taking on both human and mutant enemies in intense combat. The detail here is incredible, from day and night cycles, dynamic weather, and hauntingly atmospheric locales that make the world feel alive yet very hostile. At its heart though is a deeply personal story about survival and hope, and it's just so bloody fantastic. This one is down to just under £4, which is absurdly good value, and is a great grab if you love FPS games with a stunning story. Noir detective stories aren't common in all of gaming, and BLACKSAD Under the Skin really does embrace that genre with so much style. Based on the acclaimed comic series, it actually stars John BLACKSAD, a hard-boiled private investigator who also happens to be a cat. The world is obviously populated by anthropomorphic characters, but the narrative is pure gritty crime, that being murder, corruption, and secrets lurking beneath every conversation. Gameplay though does actually blend exploration, clue gathering, and dialogue choices that shape the investigation, and is closer to the likes of LA Noire than a standard point-and-click adventure. Its atmosphere genuinely captures smoky bars, dim alleys, and the tension of the 1950s pretty perfectly. At £4.20 with an 80% discount, it really is a budget-friendly pick, especially if you're a fan of these mystery sort of adventures. Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is an action game that really demands precision, and yes, although it is on Xbox Game Pass at the time of this recording, it's still well worth picking up today, as it's now the lowest price that we've ever seen since it launched earlier this year. In this one though, you will play as Ryu, slicing through hordes of enemies with lightning fast combos and punishing difficulty. Every fight within Ninja Gaiden games is a real test of your reflexes, patience, and mastery, and honestly, victory does feel rather earned than being handed to you. Its reputation as being one of the hardest action games really does still stand here, but that's exactly why fans absolutely adore it. Despite its age, the combat design still remains pretty sharp, and the Black Edition did give it a lovely facelift. At £24, it's pricier than most sales picks on this list, but it's a classic that you definitely need to try. So, what game are you going to be picking up in this week's sale? You'll have to let me know in the comments below. Remember to like this video if you did enjoy, and subscribe for more Xbox videos like this every single day. Whilst you're here though, and if you want to check out some more awesome Xbox content, then why don't you check out the video on screen now. I recently covered some awesome single player games which are still coming to our Xbox consoles and Game Pass for this year, and is definitely worth checking out as there's some absolute bangers within this list.